Good morning, everybody. There it is. There it is. There it is. So today, as Father had announced in the first liturgy, we're going to be talking about what we see or what we do in church. We had a bunch of questions from last time, and then we had some time for a little bit of open discussion, and the ones we didn't get to, we decided to include here, and then also probably regenerate some more questions, and so on. So, the first item on, let's say, the docket is essentially a topic on body language and how we should be in the church. So the question originally was, is it appropriate for you to cross your legs in church? And as you see, I have a little anecdote here in the bulletin of, I wish people could see what I see when we come into church. It's really interesting on my end of the view. Because, you know, there's some people who are sitting there just peacefully, attentively, prayerfully, and so on. And then you've got others who are like in the middle of the room, they're kind of like slouched over, whatever. And then sometimes, on occasion, you'll see someone just sprawled out like it's a couch, which is great because you should be comfortable in church, but also at the same time, maybe not too comfortable in church. I see it all. Don't think we're not looking, we see everything. But when it comes to crossing your legs, the answer is no, because it adds that casual aspect, right? So as much as we are to be comfortable with church, we're not to be comfortable in church, meaning we shouldn't be like slouching, we shouldn't be putting our arm, like using armrests, you know, like using the pews as armrests. Or if we're sitting, we don't sit too long, we sit at either the designated times if Father Athanasius or I instruct, you know, like we should be, the idea is that we should be the most attentive within liturgy. You know, there's different parts within the liturgy where the priest actually literally says, let us be attentive. That means like, all right, something big's happening. That's like a reminder for ourselves. All right, we might have been like staring at the icons or whatever it is that we have within our time here at church, but it allows for the time as a reminder, all right, it's time to be attentive. The gospel reading's coming up, the epistle reading's coming up. Let us be attentive to the holy gifts for the holy people of God. That's not to say the only reason for it, but it's that it shows its importance. So for us, that casual, let's say, body language isn't the most appropriate for church. You're not, you know, I don't know how to explain it. You're just causing more of a temptation to kind of doze off and fall asleep and so on. So that's why we don't necessarily cross our legs in church, but we are not just crossing our legs, but also that's why we don't, you know, sprawl out like it's our couch in the pews. That, and we have a lot of people, so we don't want to take up too much space. So that's part of it. The second question that we received was another little tidbit about Andidoron. So some people will come up to receive communion, and then they will go to the bowl that holds the Andidoron, the bread, and they'll take handfuls. So there's two comments to make about this, right? One is my favorite thing to say. It's not breakfast, right? This isn't IHOP, this isn't, you know, Waffle House, this isn't Roadie's down the road, this isn't Tarpon Diner, this isn't all the other restaurants we've got, Johnny Grits and so on, right? Breakfast is afterwards. I'm sure the bakery does a phenomenal job about making loaves. We have ladies and men who make phenomenal Andidoron. I get it. It's not breakfast though. So you come up to receive communion, you go up to the bowl, you take a piece or two, and that's really for the communion to go, let's say, to go down, right? It's not there to sustain us throughout the day. It's not there to give us any type of carbohydrate, obviously, that we need throughout the day, or if we just love bread like Oprah, but it's not breakfast. So that's part one that I have to offer. Part two is then you'll see people do take handfuls, and then they go back to their pew and they'll distribute themselves like amongst everybody around. And it's interesting, I've seen it everywhere. This isn't anything just specific to St. Nicholas, but you'll have some people and everyone around gets a piece of bread. So the distribution of Andidoron is not a wrong thing if it happens after liturgy. So within the liturgy, right, Andidoron serves its purpose for us to receive communion, to then come forward and then to make sure that, say, it all goes down. The second reason why we have Andídoron in the church is not everyone in the church is Orthodox, or not everyone in the church is prepared to receive Holy Communion. So in that case, they receive a piece of Andídoron at the end of the service, so instead of the gifts. That's literally what Andídoron means when broken down. So it gives us that opportunity to still receive a blessing from the church. Now, the blessing comes from the priest. The blessing doesn't come from the person around you, if that makes sense. I hope we're making sense here. I know some people have done it and so on, and that's cool. You're not doing anything wrong in a sense, but let's try to fix that type of behavior. It's really just trying to regather ourselves to learn the procedures or the proper, what's proper within the church. So taking handfuls to then leave, and let's say, for example, we have a couple of our ladies here who go to the hospitals and nursing homes. They have whole bags. Maria, hold up your bag. Do you have your bag yet? Maria, do you have your bag yet? She hasn't gotten her bag yet. She takes a whole bag, a whole Ziploc baggie full. But she also goes, and her and all of the ladies, they go around to all the different hospitals and all to the different nursing homes, and they distribute the Andídoron to them if they couldn't make it to church or so on. And then we come and they tell us also it's a wonderful relationship that we have. So, however, Maria's not taking her Ziploc baggie and going to the middle of the pews and says, "Come to me, I have all the Andídoron," right? Maria, you're not doing that, right? I know she's not, because she knows all of these things. But she's here anyways, God bless her. But that's not what's happening. It's happening after the liturgy, because that's when it's appropriate for that to happen. So that's why we don't do that within the church, because then at the end of liturgy, the priest distributes the Andídoron, and the blessing comes from the priest. One, it's blessed by the priest, but two, to have that interaction allows for that, because some people will leave after their small distribution, I guess, in the pews and so on, and it's not necessarily the most appropriate. So these are, again, wonderful questions about the things that we see and do within the church. I need a timer. Someone tell me what time it is. 17 till. We have until, I think, 10 till. So we have 7 minutes for another part, was the third one, if time allows. This is that time allows. For any open questions that we have, or that people who are here might want to ask about what we see or do in church. Yes? Okay, perfect. So the most appropriate thing, it's a great question, is some people will go home and they'll take Andídoron, they'll take multiple pieces, 7 pieces, they'll take one for each day, which is wonderful. It's a great thing. What we would suggest, because for example, today, right? We're obviously handing out 1 piece to every single person, but as you saw, there was only 1 little bowl. So we have to make sure everyone gets a piece of Andídoron. The most appropriate thing is when everyone has received, then come up. So don't come up for communion and then fill up your little baggie, your personal. They make little beautiful cloth bags in the bookstore that we sell here, and people buy them and they take them home, which is great. It allows for them to have that constant reminder of church, constant reminder of receiving the gifts of God. So it's appropriate to at least wait until the end so that everyone receives a piece of Andídoron, and then we can then fill our bags and fill everything so that we can either take it to family members, take it to our loved ones who might be homebound, to the hospitals and so on. That's a more appropriate thing. So don't necessarily take it from communion, but when you come receive communion, but towards the end when everybody has received the piece. That's a great question. Anyone else? We all know everything about the liturgy. Yes. We all got a master's in divinity. So I'm coming really close to the thing, but I need to hear you. So that's a great question, and as a timing of when it comes to, let's say, that body language of crossing our legs or of slouching and so on, it's something that we should never really do in church, because think about where we're at, right? We're in the house of God. And then if it's during liturgy, obviously we're worshiping. And when we come here, maybe it's during the week or for ourselves, whatever it is, and there might not be a service in and of itself, it allows for that opportunity for prayer. Well, I don't know many people who pray like this. like sprawled out on the pews, or casually. Usually their prayer is more in like, I don't know how it's all about the body language. It's, hands together, kind of not slouched over in a comfortable way, but slouched over in a prayerful presence. That's more of like that body language that we were talking about. Is it plays a huge role in what our prayers are, right? Because even in the parable of the publican and the Pharisee, they're both praying, but one's doing it, let's say, wrong, and the other one's doing it right. So you see the Pharisee in the middle of the church, like me, beating his chest, saying, look at me, I'm praying, I'm so holy. And then on the other end, you also see the publican, the tax collector, who's in that prayerful presence, who's kneeling, who's bent over, who's beating his chest in awe of all the things that he's done. So there's that essence of that body language that plays a role in our prayerful state. Because remember, when we're praying, we're also communicating to God. So think about like how we even have a simple conversation. You actually get, this is where like the psychology comes in, you get more a part of the conversation from people's body language than the actual words they are speaking. So in that same essence, we don't want to be comfortable. We don't want to be crossing our legs or slouching or this or that or sprawled out on there like it's a lazy boy. We want to be able to, because within our communication, we want to have that. That makes sense? Wonderful. What else? Yes? So the aisles, the question is people will, she was told, to not go up and down the middle of the aisles, and so that was really reserved for the priests. Well, what we spoke about previous to this is, yes, the priests obviously go up and down the aisle. So like at those times, let's say, no, you shouldn't go down the aisle because I'm holding a censer and I'm swinging it around. And if you come down the aisle to go and sit in your pew, if you get whacked by the censer, that's not my fault. It's a joke. Obviously, I'm not going to hit you with the censer. Like, that's not what I'm here to do. But it's something that if the priest is in use of the aisle, because sometimes you'll see people, like, even for the great entrance, you'll see sometimes we'll go around, the altar boys are leading, and then the priests come, and then they like follow in behind us, and then they go to their pew. They think we don't see things because our backs are turned, but I see it all the time. It happens. And those times I would say it's inappropriate to go down the middle use of the aisle. But let's say you go to the side and the whole aisle is full except for the inside. Okay, it's just logical, right? You're not hurting anyone's feelings, you're not doing anything inappropriate. But when, let's say, the priest is in use of the aisle, it's inappropriate. But if, it's wide open, just don't make sure you turn your back towards the altar and things like that. We spoke about that before too. Yes?
Just to clarify, if you're in the end and you need to leave the church, it's okay to go through this.
Yeah, it's okay because then here's what happens, right? Not to say it's about our pews, but let's say a pew's length doesn't really allow for a lot of space. All right, so out of, let's say, economia, it's easier for you to go if you're more towards the back, let's say, right? I would probably say it's also a geographical thing. If you're more towards the back and you have to leave that day, maybe sit towards the back and be able to go. But like if you're standing right in the front row and we're sitting here, and then it's like, oh, it's like 10:30, I got to get out of here. You're going to stand right here in front of everybody and say, all right, see you guys later, I'm out of here. No. You know what I'm saying? So like make it a part of an appropriateness. Obviously use your judgment. Hopefully the judgment's good enough, but make sure that it's in an appropriate manner. So that would be something that's inappropriate. You know what I'm saying? Whereas if you have to leave early but you still want to come to church, I admire that. But let's think about it wisely. Don't sit in the front pew in the middle aisle and then be like, all right, I got to see you guys later. It's like halfway through or in the middle of the gospel lesson, which brings up actually a good point of like when people should be entering into the church. So another part that's actually kind of leads me into that, and I think we'll end, and whatever questions are left, we'll write on to please write them in and submit them into Father Athanasius or I. We shouldn't be coming in during the entrances, during the small entrance, the great entrance, the gospel readings, and so on. There should be no reason to be coming into the church at those times because of two things. Let's say logistically speaking, we're using the aisles, right? So we don't want to interfere with the procession that's occurring. But also, there's a presentation. There's a presentation of the gifts. There's a presentation of the gospel. There's things that we have to be attentive to, right? So For example, the small entrance, we're talking about Sophia Orthi, wisdom arise. So it's time for us to be attentive, right? The gospel is being brought out. Then there's also the great entrance where we're professing with the gifts. Then there's the gospel lessons and so on. Those are for us to be attentive. If someone comes in and out or the door slams or whatever it is, it can be distracting. And we don't want to distract people because that's not the point. The point is for us to be able to be attentive to God's word, to the liturgy, and so on. So there's that aspect also of when should we come in and out of the church as well. So these are always great questions, and I mean, obviously we kind of flowed into that one because some people have either been taught different things, which are fine, totally okay. That's not necessarily the issue because, you know, at the end of the day, it's all out of love and respect for the church and for us to understand it best and proper of how to be within our beautiful worship. And so that's something that we need to continuously learn and strive to learn. So thank you all for these great questions.